The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to a very different edition of the Phixated podcast. We are crossing enemy lines tonight, Regzy, baby. Welcome to the show.
We're mixing it up, man. Look at us being content people. Like, just trying to give you guys all the angles is really what we're doing.
Are we jumping the shark here, Rex?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it feels right.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, we're doing this after we already did the interview. So, I mean, it was fantastic. So we think you're going to love it, flat out. But I think it went great. I'm very excited for people to hear this. And yeah. I think it's one of the things that I hope the people who listen to us, and I've heard it from a few people, is that we're not like, yes, obviously we're homers. We love our Philly sports. But, like, we can accept the fact that Patrick Mahomes is, like, sent from God to play football and the scariest guy on a football field we may have ever seen in our whole lives. Like, those things exist, and we're willing to listen to the other perspective. And that's what I think we did tonight. And I think our listeners, I mean, I really appreciated it, and I think everyone else will too.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun tonight, and we'll get into why here in a little bit when we introduce the actual interview itself. But hey, real quickly, just a couple of quick highlights. Let's start with the bad one first. We'll get the bad news out of the way. Sixers lost tonight. That should have been a win, dude.
It's all Doc's fault, and that's all we'll say about it.
Yeah. Somehow this team's 34-18. And, just a bad loss, bad subbing, bad rotation. You have a 20-point lead early on the road and somehow end up losing the game by double digits.
This is the last one. The rotations were absolutely atrocious. He played multiple all-reserve lineups, which I think at one point were minus 22 for 7 minutes played.
Yeah.
And one guy was like, how is that possible? He's like, that's not a thing that happens, being that minus in that few amount of minutes. So just literally a loss because of Doc Rivers in the lineups he put out there.
Somehow this team is 34-18.
Somehow, right? Despite all their, Doc's best efforts.
Yeah. They're 2.5 games out of first place.
Yeah.
It's just
craziness. Absolute craziness.
It's just unbelievable. They play on Wednesday and Friday of this week. They got the Celtics on the road and then the Knicks at home before going to Brooklyn.
My God, the Celtics are going to kill them. Good Lord.
It's not going to be a
pretty game.
Not going to be good.
Nope.
But that'll be the night before the trade deadline, and that's that. Jumping over to the Phillies real quickly, because again, guys, we're running through this because we've got a 50-minute interview coming up here in a little bit. But certainly some fun stuff coming out of Clearwater already. The Phillies went out and Dave Dombrowski does it again, brings in utility guy Josh Harrison, which, we talked about, what are you going to do with the bench? You lost 2 guys who were really important to you. Well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
There's your answer. He can play multiple positions on the field.
Yeah.
Multiple.
I think that I saw Camargo got signed. Munoz got signed somewhere else to minor league deals. So again, that's 2 guys who Camargo started the season for you on fire, like literally a key part of your lineup. And then Munoz towards the end started filling in here and there. Again, Harrison coming back to Philadelphia. He was one of those rare athletes in our god awful run for the past almost decade who really embraced Philadelphia. And the fans loved him. So I think everyone's pretty jacked up about him just coming into the team. And from everything that we saw and you continue to hear, like the ultimate locker room guy. Just a guy that everyone loves, who always is like keeping positive and being almost that Jimmy Rollins type. He's almost that Jimmy Rollins type of guy he's going to talk a lot more than your Bryce Harpers or your JTs or even your Reeses. But like, he's just there to make sure everyone is happy and on the same page. And, one guy has a down game, he's going to be the first guy over there hyping him up and getting him ready to go the next day. So I think just all around a really good pickup.
Yeah, I think he's one of these signings that, you know, you make and it doesn't look glamorous in the grand scheme of your
sure.
off season. But he's going to pay dividends. He plays multiple infield positions and can play both corner spots. And I think you'll see a little bit of him early in the year. You know, losing Vierling and Maton, this is just a sure thing to put on your bench.
Yeah.
And certainly helps the club in a lot of ways. Two other things I wanted to touch on. Did you see the video of Bryson Stott hitting?
No.
In Clearwater?
Did I miss that one?
There's a video of it's one swing.
Okay.
But it's different.
Oh.
And let me tell you. All right. Buckle up, baby.
All right.
Buckle up. I think we're about to see Bryson Stott break out Bryson this year.
That's fantastic. I'm going to have to find
Break
that.
out
You're going to have
Bryson.
to send it to me.
I will. If I can find it again, I'll
Yeah,
send it to
I'm
you.
gonna look for it too.
The swing path just looks different.
That's fantastic.
The swing path looks different. He looks like he's a little more straight up
Yep.
than he was. And the swing path just looks different because of the way that he's standing.
Listen, the dude trains with Bryce Harper. So we saw Bryce kind of switch from that hunched over, like that really knee bend, you know, stance to right now Bryce is more straight up and down. And, you know, change something. Obviously, Bryson Stott is not Bryce Harper just from a talent perspective. Bryce Harper, you know, is the LeBron James of baseball. But that's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Obviously, they saw something and he's doing what he needs to do to make the necessary adjustments. Like, that's what you want to see in your rookie's second year. You played a ton. You got the opportunity to come in here. They got rid of the veterans in front of you to give you the opportunity to play. You need to take that and like go back and assess what your season was like and plug the holes and start now.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see if that's just a thing that he's trying or if it's actually going to translate. I've always personally found it easier to see the ball when I'm up versus, you know, squatted. But we'll see. I mean, huge development though if he becomes breakout person.
Oh yeah.
Other thing. You did see the Andrew Painter video.
I sure did. And I sent it to you.
He's also the number one pitching prospect in all of baseball. I think that prospect label is going to be pulled off him rather quickly.
Yeah.
I think he makes the team right out of camp. That fastball in the video.
Yeah.
Just dotted.
So speaking to that, obviously shout out High Hopes and our boy Jack Fritz, who we kind of got on the podcast before he became super famous. So, you know, good for us for being there at the ground floor. He spoke to him being like down there in training and that he's literally took the last 3 months off, like rested his arm, not done a lot. That's just what you do. He gets his arm back and ready to go. And he had gotten some intel that he was sitting 95 coming off of resting his arm for 3 months, which is just absurd. Like it's for anybody who doesn't know about baseball, like not many people do that.
Yeah. If you're here for the football, like I don't necessarily have the right comparison for you.
I don't know if there is
what
one
that would feel like. I can't imagine throwing 95 ever, but coming off of 3 months of sitting, and I mean, he's usually up around 100, 101.
Right.
And but the spot is what got me.
Oh my gosh.
Like, and the movement.
Yeah.
That ball's moving. That ball's moving away from a lefty.
Yeah.
At 98.
And it looked like he wasn't even trying.
Effortless.
It looked like he wasn't even trying.
Regz, I know I've said it on the show and we laughed about it. This is the best prospect that we have ever seen in the Phillies organization. This kid is unbelievable.
I know.
He's unbelievable.
All my heart wants is for him to come up and be good.
And he's going to be.
I know. I'm praying to all the baseball gods. Like, just let us have this one.
But please understand now, it's not going to be 7 innings.
No, it's not. I'm perfectly fine with that. Like,
it's going to be 5, 6 innings max. 6 is max for him.
I'm in. I'm in. I have no
6 is max for him.
I have no issues with that.
They're going to get that boy out of there real fast.
Yep. No issues.
The only way that you see it is if like him go 6 is if they're not stressful innings.
Yeah.
That's going to be it.
I'm all in.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Well, Regs, I mean, end of the day, you know, we had one bad thing. We had a couple of good things in Phillies world, but we have the ultimate, or shall I say super thing coming next week.
I see what you did there.
Thanks. We are right now, next week.
Yeah.
We will know whether or not the Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Yeah. We'll be getting ready to record.
Yeah.
We'll
we'll either be
very
having
sad
people come
or
on.
very happy podcast.
We'll either have people coming on to talk joy, or people are coming on to, well, I don't know if we'll have people on if they lose.
We'll be the two of us very disappointed.
Yeah. But it's basically a week from now. The game starts at 6:30.
Yeah.
So, you know, it'll be right about here where we're figuring it out. But, you know, we thought we wanted to do 2 shows.
Yes.
Sort of leading into this that were Super Bowl focused. And, you know, we talked about this on the last episode. I forgot to tell you this. I'll tell you this now. You know, we were talking about how lucky we were as fans, right? And, you know, you and your, you know, trying to get one of the boys to get into it with you and really, really like soak it in because of just how special what we're going through right now is. Well, that actually hit really close to home with one of our listeners who texted me and posted on the Phixated fan page on Facebook today. And I'll pull up what he said real quickly because I thought it was really cool. So Brian, who's a dedicated listener, said, "I'm a week late, but I finished the latest episode of Phixated, and it reminded me of a conversation I had with my 9-year-old son. I've been a Philly fan my entire life, and I had to wait 29 years for a Phillies World Series championship. Of course, the 93 heartbreak. 38 years for an Eagles Super Bowl win. 43 years for a Monday Night Football game. Never had a ball thrown to me by a Major League Baseball player. And as a 9-year-old, hold on, it just disappeared on me there. And as a 9-year-old, Grayson has experienced all but an actual Phillies World Series win. And he will experience a second Eagles Super Bowl. It's too young to appreciate the significance of this, but I'm trying. Last night we watched an old DVD of the history of the Philadelphia Eagles and the part where they imploded the vet. We were watching the fans lament on what it means to be a Philly fan. I was trying to explain it to him. I got a little choked up. And then he goes on to say he blamed his brother for introducing him to the heartbreak and pure joy of Philly sports. Fly, Eagles, fly."
That's fantastic.
So really cool, Brian. Thanks for sharing that, man. That's why I wanted to do this podcast.
It's awesome. And this is kind of, I mean, obviously I was very lucky to be able to bring my oldest son to like the first Phillies playoff game at Citizens Bank Park in 11 years. It's hopefully a memory that is burned into his little brain. The kid doesn't forget anything else I ever say because he brings it back to me if I ever say anything wrong. But like, I'm hoping this one's stuck at the very least. But like, I was very lucky to be able to go to a division game, an NLCS game, and a World Series game, even if that World Series game was the no-hitter. Oh my God, I just got sad again. Damn it. Which I left an inning early because I refused to watch the end of that game. And then with this Eagles thing, again, as I've said many times before, baseball is my thing. It's just what I've gravitated towards as I get older. It's what my son is now playing. Like we literally just pulled the net out tonight to test a new bat that I bought him for his travel season coming up. So we pulled it out so he could get a couple swings in after practice this morning. But this Eagles thing I don't know how to equate it, but just he's already asking Dad, can I stay up for the whole Super Bowl? And his bedtime's 7:30. Like we go upstairs at 7:30 to get showers, you know, all that stuff and get ready for bed. And, you know, I said, yes, like, of course you can. His younger brothers get tired and they're going to go to bed, but he's going to stay up and watch the whole thing with me.
There you go.
And it's really cool to be able to do that and it's super cool that Brian shared that and is having a similar experience. And I think it's a little bit even different for him or my son because like we live in Baltimore. Like he's not surrounded by, there's a couple teachers at school who happen to be Philly people. So every time he wears his gear, you know, they're giving him a fist bump in the hallway, which is pretty cool. But he's surrounded by Orioles and Ravens fans. So he's not like sharing this with his whole school or like his class, you know, they're not like singing Fly Eagles Fly after the Pledge of Allegiance or anything like that. You know, we're not going to church where they're doing, you know, EAGLES chants after amen. If anyone saw that video.
Before it, probably.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I got my timing wrong there, but that's just really cool, Brian. We appreciate you sharing that. Again, awesome. Thanks for listening. And whenever your son gets his own cell phone and can, you know, put a podcast app on there, tell him to download it and tell him we shouted him out in this episode. When
they win the Super Bowl, have them come on.
Bring them both. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, both of you come on.
Why not?
We'll celebrate with both of you.
That's right.
But we wanted to bring the full scope of content, and part of that from our perspective was, look, like we don't know a lot about the Chiefs, right? Yeah. We know Andy Reid's the coach. We know they have arguably the greatest tight end of all time, and they have a world-class dude behind center in every way.
Yeah.
The playing, the person, it's all there. But we don't know the team.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talked to Regz. I said, you know, I got someone that I grew up with who is a big Chiefs fan. And, you know, someone that I know is really dedicated and can basically talk all over the, you know. So we asked Kyle Messa, who will show you just how knowledgeable I feel like he should just do one of these.
He did fantastic.
I feel like he should just do a podcast.
I mean, I was telling someone I was at a wedding on Friday, and again, a cousin who's a listener of the show was thinking about doing his own, like he's a strength and conditioning coach for like a D3 school.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, it's free. All the stuff I use besides this microphone and this headset are free. You could literally plug in AirPods to a computer and do this for nothing. Zero money it takes to do this.
Yep. I mean, look, I got to tell you, I feel like Kyle showed tonight the dude belongs hosting a podcast.
He's ready.
He's ready. Kyle, you're ready.
I'm sure he can find a Chiefs fan friend. Like, let's get it rolling.
Yeah, for sure. But certainly our goal was to provide Eagle fans with a little bit of context about who you're going to see other than number 15. And Kyle says it perfectly, eloquently, as a matter of fact, that the best player in this game is wearing red and number 15. Yeah. I think you put it perfectly. But he gives you some other things to think about from a Chiefs perspective. You know, some things that favor the Chiefs, some things that favor the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from afar, we don't often see those things. You know, we knew all about the Patriots.
Yeah.
Because how can't you? They're on TV all the time.
Yeah.
You know, they're talked about all the time. I think the Chiefs are a little bit under the radar this year just because of the AFC being loaded, which Kyle also talks about in our conversation. And people not thinking that they were going to get out of the conference. Not here on Phixated, Regz. We picked them to get out of we picked the Super Bowl, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
But, you know, I think, honestly, I don't know that there's much else that I want to say other than, you know, thank you to Kyle.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, otherwise, Regz, let's just get into it.
Let's get into it.
All right, everybody. So we promised you that we're going to cross enemy territory tonight. We brought on a childhood friend of my brother and myself, someone that we grew up with back in Easton. Is a longtime Chiefs fan, lifelong Chiefs fan. Kyle Messa. Kyle, thanks so much for coming on tonight, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it as well.
Yeah, crossing enemy territory. I have to thank you twofold, though, not just for coming on, but for your patience. For those of you that don't remember, Kyle was a winner of one of our like little sweepstakes that we did, and I still have what he won sitting here with me. So Kyle, this is proof it exists. I just got to send it to you, man.
That sounds good. I will rock that proudly as soon as it gets here.
I'm going to put it in the mail this week. I swear to you, brother. I swear to you. So we really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for being a listener and and hanging out with us every week. It means a lot to us, especially, from our prior, like our history and growing up together and everything. So thank you for that. But we're going to dive right in. I think I got to lead with the question of, like, you grew up in the same areas as we did, but I know, like, your fandom, like, you bleed your teams. Like, you are the same way as Regz and myself. You bleed Phillies, you bleed Notre Dame football as we do, and you bleed Kansas City Chief football as well. So, I got to ask you, like, what was it about the Chiefs? Some of your favorite memories, some of your favorite players. Talk us through, like, your fandom and how you got here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine it's pretty common when you're little, right? You kind of root for whom your dad roots for. So my dad was a huge Chiefs fan growing up for reasons I don't even actually know. So I've been a Chiefs fan since I was little, for better, for worse, mostly for worse. We suffered long and hard, just like you guys have. My little guy is a big Kansas City fan now too, which is really cool. But yeah, no, when I was little, it's, when I remember when Joe Montana went there, that was like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Bills were really, really good at the same time. And probably more importantly, Dallas was really, really good at the same time on the other side. So never really had a chance to break through. Right when fantasy football became a thing, you guys remember when Priest Holmes was like,
Yes.
Of course.
right?
Yes.
So, having like that guy be on my team was really cool.
That was back when we were playing Madden in the dorm rooms, and Priest Holmes was
Yeah,
like
man.
one of the few
Franchise mode.
99s that you could pick up. Like, he won you
Yeah.
games by himself.
Yeah, just so many players. Derek Thomas was a big one for me. My all-time favorite player is Tony Gonzalez. I was crushed when he wasn't traded back to Kansas City right as he was retiring.
Yeah.
That was rumored, and the Chiefs were really good that year, but it did never materialize. So, I was actually, fun story, I was actually in Kansas City the night that the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, wow.
And
That's awesome.
the narratives around that on talk radio was not a whole lot of people were excited about that. When you give up as much as they gave up to go up in the draft to take a quarterback, you had best be right, or it cripples you for 5+ years, right? But man, what a feeling having the guy. It's the coolest thing in the world. So
Yeah, like the superhero of NFL football, like the most likable guy on the planet.
Right.
Too.
very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so.
It is. I mean, you said it. You miss on that, a la Chicago Bears, Mitch Trubisky, same draft. Like they swung and missed hard, and it took them a while to get to the point where now they have Justin Fields, and certainly they look like they might be trending in the right direction. But he was not highly thought of coming out. Like, people liked him, but they didn't love him, and certainly he's turned a lot of critics into fans, and quickly. And I think, from a national perspective and an outsider perspective, for me, Kyle, it is his likability factor. Like, the guy plays the game like the right way. He plays hard. He's super talented. The arm talent, the leg talent, the brain, it's all there. And we're going to, obviously, he's going to be someone that we talk about throughout this conversation, but like, what is there a way to, like, stop him outside of him having a high ankle sprain? Like, have you seen any team be able to contain Patrick Mahomes full go?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, right? Teams go in cycles with it. So initially, everyone wanted to blitz, and then it became very clear, if you blitz this kid, he knows where it's coming from, and he will tear you to shreds. So Tampa, in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, they completely changed. They rushed 4 and dropped 7, and it was just a 7-person zone, and they refused to allow the Chiefs to go deep. And it was very effective. And then the following year, especially when the Chiefs had all the turnovers at the beginning of the season, it was a lot of Patrick trying to force things that weren't there, because teams were they were dropping a million people and not allowing them to get over the top. So where he's become, man, especially deadly now, is he is being patient, and he is spreading the ball around, and it's not just trying to force the ball to tie 75 yards downfield. They're picking teams apart, and he's special. The high ankle sprain is a big deal. Dude's on one leg, but you never feel out of a game as a fan, and I can't imagine what it's like to have that guy on your team as a player. The kind of things he can do.
Yeah, Yeah, and you know, we certainly are like hoping we see a side of that. We've seen parts of that from Jalen. I feel like, you know, we have not felt like we're out of games with Jalen this year. But certainly not to the extent that you guys feel that. And from an opposing fan perspective, I know it doesn't matter what the lead looks like, what the score looks like. It's not over. It's like when we played Brady.
Yeah.
Like we know what that feels like. From the fan side of things.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to see a lot more. And Regz, you Kyle, you listen to the show, you know how Regz feels. You're going to see a lot more of the 4-man rush from us with guys sitting in coverage. To Reg's despair, you're going to see quite a bit of that. But we do have the guys that can get there. So like that doesn't, you know, from our side of things, it bothers us when teams dink and dunk us down the field. But certainly we do have the ability to get home with the rotation that, you know, 8-9 deep that the Eagles will put out there at times. So, hey, let's have a little fun here. There's a lot of narratives, and Regz, I'm going to start with you on this one. A lot of narrative surrounding this game, right? The Andy Reid Eagle thing. You've got the Kelsey brother situation. You've got, you know, for the first time, 2 quarterbacks of color are starting an NFL Super Bowl, which is incredible. But Regz, like, what is your favorite narrative? And then Kyle, we'll turn to you for your favorite narrative heading into this one.
I think this is a very biased narrative in which I'm enjoying that everyone thinks the Eagles are just like, for some reason, too good. They're just like, oh yeah, they're really talented, but they're not that good. Like, it's like, I don't know how you say one thing, but like also say the other in the same sentence and not sound as stupid as possible. I think my second choice would be the Andy Reid one for more like a national narrative. It's pretty cool that, you know, we're facing Big Red, who literally kind of brought this team back from nothing, literal nothing, and turned it into a team that regularly expected to win the division and make it to NFC championship games. And that didn't exist for much of the time that we grew up, and didn't exist too much after the fact, obviously, until the crazy runs, the run that we had a couple years ago and now this one. But I'm enjoying all these people coming out of the woodwork to be like, I don't know if they're that good. Like, okay, that's great. Fantastic. You know, that's where Azzy would read off all the Jonathan Gannon stats and, you know, the 70 sacks and all that, which is all valid, but it's more like, yeah, we are really good. I'm not getting up there. Like, I'm not saying this game is in the bag, because Patrick Mahomes scares the ever-loving bejesus out of me. Until that clock literally goes down to 0 in the fourth quarter, he will scare the bejesus out of me, just like Tom Brady did. But that's been my favorite one of all these like players that we've played coming out of the woodwork, being like, yeah, I guess they're okay. Like, all right, we beat you by 30. Like, go home. Be quiet. Idiots.
What about you, man?
I mean, the Andy one is good, especially what you said, Regz, about, you know, it's easy to forget how bad the Eagles were before he got there.
Yeah.
It's very easy to forget how bad Kansas City was before he came to the Chiefs. I mean, they were a mess. They had the worst record in the league. They took a tackle who was good, not great. It was a really weak draft of all the years to have the number 1 pick. I mean, geez, we had a player commit suicide at the team facility that offseason before he was hired. I mean, it was about as bad as it could possibly get. So I'm sure this is special for Reid. He still loves Philly. He talks about it all the time. But for me, I'm going with the Kelsey brothers. I mean, how could you not love those guys? I think they're both incredible. I don't think the world's ready for Kelsey Bowl, personally. But yeah, I mean, they're just awesome, man. Both first ballot Hall of Famers. You could easily make the case for both to be possibly the best ever to play the position that they play, which is unreal. Yeah. Considering, you know, not heralded recruits coming out of high school. I mean, Travis was a quarterback at Cincinnati, you know, so I'm going with the Kelsey Bowl. I think they'll be having a good time regardless of who comes out on top.
Yeah, they're. Do you listen to New Heights, Kyle?
Bits and pieces. Yeah, I catch it when I can, and those guys they're hilarious. They both have that larger than life personality, and they play off each other real well.
They really do. I mean, you know, and I also love like all the love that Donna Kelsey is getting right now too. Like there's like a petition rolling around social media about her doing the coin toss.
That
Like
would be hilarious.
it is such a thing right now that
well
people
over
have
100,000 signatures apparently.
I'm one of them.
Oh yeah, good for you.
Yeah, I want it so badly. I love her. I love how they talk about her on the show. Like it is like they're back and forth with the, you know, well, mom loves you because you have grandkids. Like she gets grandkids from you. She comes to my games, and that's why I know she loves me. Like that whole give and take is just great to me. Kyle, you mentioned the Andy Reid thing, and Regz, you did too. And I will always love Andy. Like Andy to me is like he's the epitome of what Eagle football was for me for a very long time. And I read something tonight. He's 3-0 against the Chiefs in his career, and he's 3-0 against the Eagles in his career. So, you know, he's I don't know. Andy's just always kind of been that guy. I remember him being at when they were at Lehigh, and we walked into Starters at Kyle. I remember Starters Pub, like over by Lehigh.
378. Yep.
And yeah, exactly. And he was there like one afternoon sitting at the bar eating by himself, and like my cousin Dan and I went in with my uncle. And we walked like right up to him, and he talked to us for like a half an hour. He couldn't have been nicer. Like we interrupted this dude's lunch. We were like, I don't know, 6th graders at the time. And he just couldn't have been friendlier. He couldn't have been more welcoming and engaging with the two of us. And I've just never forgotten that because, you know, he took a lot of crap when he was here at times and, you know, couldn't win the big one here and all that. So when he got the big one, I was obnoxious on social media about it because I will always love Big Red and everything he did to change the trajectory of Eagle football for us. I think for me, guys, I'm going to complete the trifecta of what I asked, and I'm going to go with, you know, for the first time, 2 quarterbacks of color and playing and starting a Super Bowl game. You know, I listened to RG3 tonight on the Pro Bowl, and he was talking a little bit about, you know, this whole experience and this whole situation. And he mentioned, you know, people have always said like a quarterback, an athletic quarterback is never going to be able to get the job done, like because running isn't going to win the game. Well, both of these guys have done more than just run the football, right? Jalen has progressed into an NFL quarterback right before our eyes. Patrick Mahomes has done the same thing. He gets better every single week, and I don't know how. It feels like he always reaches the ceiling and then somehow bursts through it anyway. But they not only beat you with their legs, they not only beat you with their arms, but it's here. And it's the leadership for both of them too. They're smarter than the guys across from them, but the way they carry themselves and the belief that their teammates hold in them, I think that, you know, they really set a tone for the way that, you know, that dynamic quarterback is looked at. And now they're standing across from each other in the biggest game of the year. And I think it's just really cool. It's great for kids all across the country who get to see themselves in that experience. Yeah. And see the type of people that they are.
It was also like,
that's awesome.
Could you have 2 better examples of always underwritten in that was like, unfortunately, like the unfortunate underlying of that was that black quarterbacks aren't smart enough. Mm-hmm. Like all they do is just run at the first sign of trouble. Like, could you find a smarter guy than Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback position right now and possibly ever? Like he's up there probably in the top 5 of guys. Yeah. And again, Jalen is not at Patrick Mahomes level yet, but he certainly made the leaps to get away from that guy who just scurries at the first sign of trouble in his face. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that underlying narrative, I think, has been sort of booted to sea, luckily. Yeah. And again, I think hopefully I'm like most people. I didn't even think about that. Like flat out. I was just like, when you just said it, I was like, oh, I was like, oh yeah. I didn't even cross my mind that it's wild A, that this is the first time, obviously. But then B, hopefully most people just, you know, didn't notice it's just 2 really good quarterbacks.
Yeah. RG3 says he's going to talk more about it on NFL Live tomorrow. So I'm going to have to set the DVR. I'd love to hear more of what he has to say, kind of speaking to that. I think it's a really cool topic to focus on going into this game. All right, Kyle, we're going to dive in with you, man. We got to get a view. I haven't been able to watch a lot of KC games this year, unfortunately. Like they're just not on in this area unless it's nationally televised games. And to be honest with you, a lot of times, unless it impacts the Eagles in the division, then I don't really stay up for all those games because look, these 8:30 start times kill me. So I got to like, I know what I know about them. You know, I know who their quarterback is. I know they have arguably the greatest tight end in league history. I know they have an explosive running back who Andy underutilizes, as he always does with his running backs. I know they have a rebuilt wide receiver core that has a lot of talent, but not necessarily as healthy as they could be coming into the game. And I know that they, their defense has, some holes that you can poke in it. So I think for us, we just have a bunch of questions that we want to ask you about, watching this team week in and week out, what you can lend to us from the information perspective that we can be looking out for. So we'll start here from an outside view. We might not see it all. And I just mentioned the really obvious glaring things that I've seen in the playoffs from them. But what is something that a Kansas City fan sees week in and week out that a fan like us, who doesn't get to watch them all the time, wouldn't know? What's something that you would tell us, this is what you need to know about this team, or a couple things if you've listed a few?
Yeah. First of all, they're young. They're really young. There's only 7 guys left on the roster from the Super Bowl team.
Wow. Okay.
One of them is Harrison Butker, who's the kicker. The other one's McCole Hardman, who's 99.9% sure not to play in the Super Bowl. They will play 4 rookies in the secondary. And if L'Jarius Sneed can't get back from the concussion, they're going to start 3 of them. So they're going to be really young on the back end. That's a big one. The other thing I think people might not realize, and I'm guilty of it myself too, and I watch a lot of their games, everybody knows that the Eagles' pass rush is formidable and that they lead the league in sacks. Second behind them is Kansas City. Now, a lot of that is Chris Jones, who is, the best interior pass rusher not named that mutant in LA. He is a special player. But Kansas City does it differently than you guys. So the Eagles, they get home just with their front 4. Spagnuolo, who I know you guys are familiar with, he's going to send a lot of guys. So they get the quarterback off the spot a lot that way, which is a big one. But those are probably the things to look out for the Chiefs. And then offensively, they spread the ball around a ton. I mean, Travis Kelce is the first option, as he should be. But they sort of replaced Tyreek Hill with a hodgepodge of good enough. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you're playing Madden, it's trading the 99 overall for 4 guys ranked 82.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they have, and Patrick slings it around. So those would be the things to watch out for if you're an Eagles fan and aren't really familiar with KC. A lot of youth on the field.
Yeah, I love that. I think, and Regz, I'll kind of bring this to you. You got 4 young guys playing in the secondary, and obviously the Eagles, Kyle, the Eagles do it a little bit backward. They try and throw the ball to get a lead so that they can beat you up in the run then. Even though they have those monsters up front, what I would argue is the best offensive line in the league, and arguably the best offensive line in the last 5 years that this league has seen. They're just unbelievable from left side to right side. But they want to throw the ball right away. And they have some really good route runners on the outside. A.J. Brown is a next level type of wide receiver. He's like a superhuman in terms of his physique and his ability to run after the catch. And then you've got Devontae Smith, who, is possibly the best route runner on the team. He's always open. And if he's not open, he still finds a way to make really difficult catches. And then Dallas Goedert, who, is basically a third wide receiver at all times on the field, and really poses problems for defenses matchup wise, because, you put a safety on him, he runs by him. You put a slot corner on him, he's bigger and stronger and more physical. So Regz, you see them kind of sticking to their game plan a little bit this week, even with that pass rush that Kyle talks about, and dropping Jalen back early, or you see them trying to get to the run? I know you love the run, but what do you think they're going to end up doing here?
I do think they're still going to probably come out trying to throw the ball, because it's like you said, they don't need to establish it. We've seen them just start the game running the ball and never stop. We've seen it happen, and it works. And the way that I just watched a couple of videos today of how our O-line was blowing San Francisco off the ball, like a fully healthy San Francisco D-line and linebackers, and we're just throwing them off the ball. So, but I don't think it's going to do anything. My biggest concern with that is, for what Kyle kind of just said, Casey likes to blitz. Usually in a blitz, Jalen hot routes to some sort of screen or very quick outside pass, which is not utilizing our most talented guys. For how good our running backs are, they're not known for catching screens and things like that. Like how Andy would utilize Westbrook so much on those crazy screens, and Westbrook was unbelievable at it. Our guys aren't put in that situation very often. And not that they're not talented enough to be good at it. It's just not a thing that we've had to do. But we saw, I'm going to go all the way back to the Arizona game where Arizona blitzed them like crazy. And they admitted after the game that their check out of blitzes, if Jalen sees a blitz coming, is like a quick screen or some sort of tight end screen or a running back screen. So I'm fearful that if KC does decide to blitz often and early, that it takes the passing game out of that natural rhythm. Yeah. Luckily, I have the confidence that if they do decide to do that, there's enough ways for us to then run the ball to get them sort of stopping that. Or if we're lucky enough and some of those screens are successful, like great, then they'll back off a little bit. But it's kind of one of the things that this Eagles team still sort of needs to prove is how good they can be when teams do blitz a lot and like right from the jump. Like that's what we saw in Arizona. Arizona was like, we are blitzing and we are doing it all game, and you're going to have to find a different way to beat us than Jalen just sitting back there behind one of the best offensive lines we've ever seen. And I think that's very much going to be Kansas City's plan, because not to say that their secondary isn't playing well. I think they are. Like we just saw against Cincinnati. Yeah, they let up a decent amount of points, but if you had followed the sort of narratives that were going into that, would you have expected a secondary full of 4 rookies to be that good against Joe Burrow and Jamar, right. Chase and all that? Like, no, your answer would have been no. And I think they played really well given the circumstances. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And where I do think that the Eagles' ability all year has still been to, like, they've shown the unbelievable ability to capitalize when secondaries are weak. Like we've seen it week in and week out that these guys get open all the time. It's just going to be Jalen, who looked, let's be honest, a little shaky throwing the ball last week. How does he look? Is he willing to stand in there and wait for these guys to get open? It's going to be one of those things very early that I'm going to be watching, and hopefully, again, for us, hopefully it goes well. But I do think it's a way that I'm sure Kansas City has realized that they can try and get Jalen out of its comfort zone and get this offense out of rhythm.
Couple of things, because I had to play the homer card a little bit here. First thing being, like, I agree with you. I thought Burrow was gonna have a day.
Yeah.
One thing that Cincinnati doesn't have that the Eagles do have is a formidable offensive line, right? So the blitz, while they send it, right? Like, it's going to be a little bit more difficult getting home on the offensive line that the Eagles put out there. And
sure.
Landon Dickerson has been unbelievable this year. Obviously, Mailata, Jason Kelsey is incredible. The other thing that I can see the Eagles doing, and something that they've done against the blitz this year, is use Jalen's legs a little bit and run some draws to kind of counter it here and there. I see the screen game being a thing, though, and that bothers me because I don't love when they do that a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Kyle, I'm going to jump back to you here, and I'm going to challenge you a little bit, obviously, from outside of the names that I'm going to throw your way here. So jumping outside of the Joneses of the world, the Mahomes of the world, and the Kelseys of the world, give us a couple of names on both sides of the ball that you would say to us, hey, listen, you might not know, this isn't Jason Kelsey or Travis Kelsey. This isn't Jones. This is somebody that you need to keep an eye on in this game from a Chief perspective.
Well, two of them are hurt on defense. They need to get back healthy. One is L'Jarius Sneed. He's their number one corner. He was hurt on the 4th play of the Bengals game, not clean out. So I guess the last I saw, he was in the 2nd stage of protocol to try to get back for the game. They really, really need L'Jarius Sneed. He's one of those best kept secret guys. Kansas City does a lot with him. They blitz him a ton. He's really, really good at it. He's a big one. The other one is Willie Gay, who is the Chiefs' best, most complete linebacker. He's the only linebacker that's athletic enough to cover in space. He also got hurt against Cincinnati, which is a big deal. That's probably Kansas City's biggest Achilles heel is the lack of athleticism in the linebackers. So they desperately need Willie Gay. Offensively, you kind of mentioned him earlier. It's Isaiah Pacheco, who was I believe a 6th round pick out of Rutgers.
Love him.
I mean, dude just runs like his ass is on fire. He's a violent runner. Love him. If there was ever never pick running backs early in the draft, it's the fact that this guy took Clyde Edwards-Helaire's job by like week 4. You know, so that's a big one. And then for another guy on offense, it would be a guy who, out of necessity, really came up huge for Kansas City this past week, and that's Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City had pretty much used him all year as the run a go and try to take the top off and open things up underneath. Again, their top 3 wide receivers got hurt against the Bengals, so he had to play different roles and run different route trees, and he was great. They don't beat Cincinnati without him. So if Juju can't get back, and Juju's had a nice season. Statistically, it's not going to blow you away, but he's a guy that Kansas City would really like to keep beyond this year. I'm hoping that they can. But he's nicked up too. So if he can't go, Valdez-Scantling is massive.
And
speaking as a fantasy owner of Juju Smith-Schuster, I would have loved if Patrick had thrown to him a little bit more. Just a little bit. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had to throw that in there.
He's had a complete 180 from his role in Pittsburgh too, right? Like he's become more of like that possession type receiver since coming to Kansas City. I mean, I was always a fan of Juju. Like, I still am bitter that he put on the USC hat instead of the Notre Dame hat when he was, committing all those years ago. But always been a Juju fan. Hey, Kyle, I wanted to ask you about one player who kind of terrifies me, but I don't know if he's able to play or not, and I haven't checked. Kadarius Toney, what's his status?
Man, he tweaked an ankle pretty bad early against Cincinnati. He's a guy, I mean, you guys, or maybe you don't, because the guy's never on the damn field. But if you were to create an Andy Reid player in a lab, that would be the guy. And he fits the offense like a glove when he's out there. They use him everywhere. But he's just never out there. He's always hurt. If I had to give it a guess at this point, because he's going to be questionable for the game, that they're going to do everything they can to have him play. But with him, it's all that quick twitch and fast change of direction. And man, he tweaks a hammy every other day, it seems. Yeah. It's always muscular stuff. And then this last one was an unfortunate. He went to make a cut, and it looked like he sprained an ankle. So I'm hoping he's there. I'd bet he'll be questionable and give it a go, but you don't know as far as how healthy will he actually be.
He's like your Debo light. Like Andy puts him everywhere, and Andy's not a guy who typically does that kind of stuff. It's not his thing to put a wide receiver at running back or all this stuff that they do with him. He definitely adds something, and the dude, like, in space is as scary as it comes.
Yeah, so another area where he's really important is Kansas City's interior offensive line is really, really good. Their center and their 2 guards are real top shelf. Their tackles can get got. So they run end-around action a lot as a way to keep the DNs honest. The 2 guys that you would use to do that are Hardman, who's almost assuredly going to be out, and Toney, who might not be able to go either. So even if they're not getting their stats, just them being on the field and defenses having to account for them is a big deal. So he will be missed if he's not able to go.
I mean, honestly, him and Pacheco scare the crap out of me just because of our sometimes inability to be able to tackle anybody, and just how shifty those guys are. Those guys they don't go down. Like, they just don't go down.
Yeah, our last week, the focus for the Eagles, Gannon said, was all tackling. Like, that's all they focused on in practice leading into the NFC title game. And I'll tell you what, one guy took that very seriously, and that was TJ Gardner-Johnson. That dude was everywhere. And honestly, I mean, I'm going to ask you this question here in a second. He might be a name that you bring up, but he's quickly become one of Philly's favorite players. He's everywhere. On every play, that dude is all over the field. So when he got hurt, and had the ruptured spleen injury, or was it kidney, Regs, or spleen? Lacerated kidney. Yeah. We thought, that was it for him. And certainly when he came back, it changed everything for the defense. And we saw that last week. And he is somebody from the safety position that you'll see kind of creeping up to help on that end around action and just be an extra guy in the box, because he recovers really well. He's a corner by nature, so he recovers really well. So that kind of leads me to this, Kyle, asking from the other side, and I'll take away. No, I don't know. I don't know that, Jalen and Patrick belong in that same tier. So I'm going to let you kind of just pick your poison here with who are two guys that, Kansas City fans have been talking a lot about from the Eagles side on the offense and defense, guys that you guys are worried about. Interested to see, from that perspective, what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, no surprise, it's Hassan Reddick. He's going to be lining up opposite Andrew Wiley, the Kansas City's right tackle. Who's okay, a serviceable guy, but he's struggled with athletic pass rushers. He had a pretty decent game against the Bengals, but even there were a few where Patrick back there on one leg, it'd be nice if he wasn't letting guys through. So Reddick opposite Wiley is terrifying. The Eagles, frankly, could win the game right there. So that's a big one. And then offensively, I kind of cheated. I didn't go with a specific player. I just, again, went with the concept of the Eagles being able to scheme athletes in space against the Chiefs linebackers. Be it Miles Sanders out of the backfield, be it Goddard. You guys line up A.J. Brown quite a bit in the slot. Those kind of things. That's going to be a big one. Is can Kansas City scheme against that to avoid having Nick Bolton having to cover Miles Sanders out of the backfield? That's not a matchup Kansas City wants to see. So again, I cheated on that one. Instead of one specific person,
that's fair.
It's a concept. Athletes in space against our linebackers is terrifying.
No, we're okay with that. I totally get it. Reddick for us. I mean, the guy has been an absolute revelation. We haven't had a pass rusher like Hassan Reddick in I can't even tell you how long. He's always at the quarterback, and when he doesn't get to the quarterback, he finds the ball if it gets out. He's always around the tackle at the end of the play. His motor never stops. You mentioned the middle of your line, and that's also really important against this Eagle team, Kyle. Like they rotate dudes all day. I mean, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham plays kind of like a NASCAR type of middle. He doesn't do it as much as he did in the Jim Schwartz defenses. It's not like that because they do have like Milton Williams who sneaks in there from time to time. And now they got Ndamukong Suh who's in there in pass rush situations. And that's not even mentioning Josh Sweat, who I still think is their best pass rusher from a defensive line stance. Like he's always there too. So that, having the middle taken care of is important because of the way those guys push the pocket. I mean, and that certainly helps a guy like Mahomes who does want to make plays and be able to feel comfortable, because the second they push that pocket into him and you've got Hassan Reddick bearing down on you, it ain't fun. It ain't fun.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm interested to see is if Gannon or the D-line coach is saying anything to Hassan and Sweat. Those guys love taking the outside route and then wrapping back to get the quarterback, because like you said, typically the front can get at least a push that makes the quarterback feel uncomfortable, like pushing up a little bit. And I'm curious to see if they maybe for the first, let's say, series are being told like, all right, let's not do that, because Patrick is so good, even on one leg, of being able to just slip out. And then when you give, regardless of who they have out there on offense, if you give Patrick Mahomes an extra half second, he's going to find somebody to throw the ball to. Mm-hmm. And let's just be honest, like our linebackers aren't going to cover everyone forever. We're kind of the same way. If we are sitting back in our zones, there's always openings in zones, right? There's holes somewhere. And if Patrick finds even a half second to be able to see something, or someone moves this way, as opposed to we thought he was going to move the other way, that's where I get scared. is because he's just so good at it. He's the best. I mean, he's literally the best in the whole league at buying just enough time for someone to get open, regardless of who he has out there. He could have the three of us out there, and if he bought a couple seconds, he'd be able to find one of us, somewhere.
Would we catch it is the question.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I want to take a hit from anyone in particular, but he'd find us regardless. I don't know what we'd do with it, but he'd find us.
The thing about it is, it's a good point. You do have two aggressive ends on the field and even BG is, as he's gotten older, has become more patient.
Yes.
He's been willing to sort of pause and they do have two veterans that back them up, right? Like Brandon Graham and Quinn, both veterans, both guys who understand that. But you have two guys who are really aggressive, or they can be able to stay patient and control the pocket rather than push for Mahomes, who's slippery. So
yeah.
The other thing, Kyle, that I'll mention to you, you mentioned Miles Sanders, and I think a guy who's stepped up and become more of a third down focus for the Eagles from the backfield is Kenny Gainwell. Yep. And especially in passing downs, and his athleticism and speed in open space is that next. He's got another gear, and he's not easy to bring down. He's not big, but he's not easy to bring down because he's not afraid to spin into tackles or out of tackles. He's not afraid. He doesn't, knock on wood, does not lose the ball as much as Miles does. Yep,
gonna go. Said that.
You're gonna send me a message, Kyle. Jesus. I know you're gonna send me a message on Sunday night. You shouldn't have said that about Kenny. I'm gonna knock on wood again.
I knocked on my desk too. Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
Listen, he just look. Here's the thing.
I haven't knocked on anything. I mean, if it happens, it happens.
I feel like that he's gonna be the Corey Clement of this Super Bowl for the Eagles. He's gonna be the guy that no one really thought about during the regular season, right? The Eagles had Ajayi, they had Blunt. This year, Boston Scott gets a lot of talk. Miles Sanders gets a lot of talk. Kenny Gainwell has really come on in the playoffs, and they love his athleticism, especially in passing downs. So if they think they can exploit linebackers in those situations, then they're absolutely going to use him. You'll see him quite a bit on like running back option routes. And Jalen does love to throw him the football. The other thing they'll do on third and like 5, Kyle, is they'll hand it off to him, because they really feel confident that he can get them 3 or 4 yards and put them in a position to go for it on 4th down. Because then they just tuck Jalen under center, and as Jason says, 92% of the time it's a 1st down. So a couple more questions here for you, Kyle. This one, this is something Regz mentioned earlier. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, we've heard a lot of narratives about the Eagles. A lot of things about the Eagles. We've heard from Julian Love that Nick Sirianni's not really a good coach. He's just riding the high because they're such a talented roster. But then you ask someone like Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers, and he says they got lucky. They're not that good. Then the national media will tell you that Jalen Hurts isn't really a good quarterback. He's not a top 5 quarterback. He's okay, but he doesn't belong in the same conversation as these other guys. And that the team has played a really easy schedule to get to this point. So mind you, we went into the Giants game hearing that Daniel Jones was a new quarterback, and they were the hottest team in football, and they were going to take us down 38-7. And then we were going to face the best defense in the league with the Niners. And, Brock Purdy is that guy. He's that guy. Well, the offensive line couldn't block Hassan Reddick, and Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson had to leave the game because they couldn't block Hassan Reddick. So, and the Eagles also put up 31 points on a San Francisco defense. And just to make sure that this is named, they only had 62% of the possession of that football game. It wasn't like it was an 80% possession rate. Like, the Niners still had possession of the football, but they just couldn't do anything with it. So I'll ask you, are they not as good as what people think, or are they that good that no one's really had a chance?
I think it's more like, are you worried? Like, what is like?
Oh God, yeah, yes. For me, I think the Eagles have the most talented roster in the NFL. Having a really good quarterback on a rookie contract will do that for you if you do it properly. And it's hard to argue with the results. I don't think those two things have to be mutually exclusive. I think the NFC is incredibly inferior to the AFC when looked at in a vacuum. It just is. Yep. The AFC is a mind, especially when you look at the quarterbacks. The number of And even, I mean, Trevor Lawrence looks like he's legit now that he has an actual coach in Jacksonville. I mean, the AFC is a minefield compared to what the NFC was this year. But the Eagles are also really, really good, and I don't think they should feel less than, or certainly have to apologize for taking care of business to the teams that were placed in front of them. So I think both things can be true. I think the NFC isn't the inferior conference, but it might have the best team in it. It's just beyond the Eagles. I think there's a pretty huge step down where in the AFC you have Kansas City, you have Cincinnati, you have the Bills. Jacksonville won like 8 of 9 coming down the stretch. San Diego has Herbert out there, Lamar Jackson when he's healthy. It's a different beast as far as the conference goes, but am I worried? Yes, the Eagles are really, really good. You beat who gets put in front of you, and that's just the way it goes.
Hey man, that's the best answer that I've heard to this.
So I'd say we found a rational fan, Azzy. We found one. They do exist.
We've talked about this ad nauseum, and we understand like the teams that they've played. Like we get the schedule, we know that. But to hear a Dallas Cowboy fan say it and try and preach that we had an easy road, y'all play the same schedule outside of 3 games, and you played a Rams team that stunk this year, like straight up stunk this year. They played the Bengals early before the Bengals were really like back. They had that Super Bowl hangover that we talk about every year. They got off to a slow start. They weren't that great. And they played them, and they played a Bucs team early in the season that we found out as the year went on. That Bucs team wasn't very good. No. So, like when you think about it from that lens, like you're right, Kyle. And the NFC, we talked about it on our playoff overview, that when you looked at the teams that the Eagles could potentially face at any time, the only quarterback that truly scared us at the time was Brady. Had we known what we know now, that wouldn't have been the conversation. The only quarterback that would have scared us was Dak, just because of his familiarity with the roster. So, you mentioned the part about Jalen and the contract and the roster. All of that is so true. And just a couple of points to that, Kyle, they'll be starting all 22 of their day one starters in this Super Bowl. The Eagles, since Sirianni has gotten here, have been incredibly healthy. I don't know what they put in the water, but we've never had Doug, never this healthy. Chip, never this healthy. Yeah. Even Andy, we were never. T.O. played on a broken freaking leg in the Super Bowl. Yeah, we've never been this healthy.
I think being deep is a big factor in that. When you can rotate like the Eagles do, it just keeps miles from piling up on certain individuals, and that's helpful, Yeah. And that if there is an advantage playing in the inferior conference, maybe that's part of it too. Where the Chiefs, man, we were dropping like flies against Cincinnati. I mean, that game was such a war. Yeah. It's maybe that's the advantage there, but no, it's really they're a very scary team. I would about halfway through the season, you have a group text with your boys, and you're going through. And I've been on the train for a while that if the Eagles don't get to the Super Bowl, the season for them should be considered a wild disappointment because they're that much better than everybody else in that conference. Yeah. And they got there, so now we get to see what happens.
And that depth is. You're so right, because there have been times like Avonte Maddox has been beat up toward the end of the year, and what they do, they just slide Gardner Johnson into the slot, and Reed Blankenship goes and plays safety, right? You have a defensive end go down like Josh Sweat, and here comes Quinn to he's right there. He's a 10-year vet that you just slide right in behind him. And some of that money that you talked about was helpful in the middle of the year when they couldn't stop the run. They go out and they sign Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh within 24 hours, and the rush defense entirely turns around. And all of that, Jerry Jones spoke this week about, well, the Eagles and the Rams went for it and they'll pay for it in the future. Jerry, I don't know what you're watching. The Eagles didn't do it the same way as the Rams. No. The Eagles have 2 first-round picks this year. They have league average cap space heading into the offseason, and they have 2 second-round picks the following year. The job that Howie has done to turn this organization around from 2020 when they won 4 games to this point where they have, like you said, Kyle, I believe on paper, the best roster in the league.
No question.
And it really, if he doesn't win executive of the year, I don't get it, because he's done a tremendous job with this roster. So that kind of leads us to this, Kyle. We're gonna get a key to this game for you, and you can take that whatever direction you want to, whatever you have as a key to this game, and then your prediction. I'll just remind you of the spread and the total. As of this moment, you can tell Vegas sees this as a coin flip. It keeps rotating between 1.5 in Kansas City's way and then 1.5 in Philly's way. It's kind of been Philly over the last week around that 1.5. With a 50.5 point total, one of the highest that we've seen all season, period. End of story. So what do you got for us, man? A key and a prediction.
So I got a couple keys. Kansas City's health is huge. Again, they finished the Cincinnati game down their top 3 receivers, their best linebacker, their best corner. Their Superman is on one leg. Travis Kelce, I believe, should be fine at this point. He's had now 2 weeks to get the back situation straightened out. But Kansas City being healthy is massive. It's difficult to see them holding up over the course of the entire game if some of those key guys are gone. Now they just did against Cincinnati, but Cincinnati had just a dismal offensive line that kind of wrecked their game plan. So that's a big one. Can the Chiefs tackles hold up? Is another really, really big one. If the Eagles pass rush with their front four has a day, we're gonna have a long, long day. So that's a huge one. I also wrote down that Carl Cheffers is going to be the referee for this game. His crew is incredibly flag happy. That could have an impact. He has a very checkered history with the Chiefs. I don't know if you guys remember the Monday night game this year against the Raiders, but it was my first time in Arrowhead, and we had that crazy play where Chris Jones strip sacked Derek Carr and finished the play as the ball carrier, but he landed on Derek Carr, and it was a 15-yard roughing the passer penalty. That guy was booed off the field at halftime, on the field after halftime. Every time he got close to the crowd, it was as hostile gets. So he's there. And then the other key is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he is that dude. And any comparisons made between him and another quarterback to me at this point are forced and purely for conversation that people don't actually believe in. Mm-hmm. I think it's him, and then a huge step to everybody else. I got some numbers here that I pulled up. So he's played against 4 top 10 pass defenses this season. He's 4-0, 70% completion, almost 300 yards passing, 10 touchdowns against 1 pick, and a 113 passer rating. Entirely capable of winning a game on his own, which as a fan is phenomenal. Yeah. For the prediction piece, I went into the San Francisco Super Bowl feeling like, and it was new to me because I'd never even seen my team play in the game. But I mean, my teams don't win much, just like you. So you're it was hard to be optimistic, but I felt like we had Mahomes and the 49ers didn't, and that would be the difference, and it was, and we won. I was very confident against Tampa. They crushed Tampa earlier that season. And then Tampa just smoked the Chiefs up front on both sides of the ball. Patrick Mahomes was incredible in that game, but the Chiefs couldn't block anybody, and the offensive line for Tampa controlled the game on the other side of the ball. I fear that the Eagles have the personnel to do the same. So, gun to my head, have to pick it. I would pick the Eagles. I do think they're the better team, and I'll call it 31-27 Philly.
All right. Wow. I gotta tell you what.
I don't like that. Can you pick again? Can you pick the Chiefs, please?
Yeah, seriously. If the Tampa Super Bowl hadn't happened, I would again just be confident. At the end of the day, with 2 evenly matched, equally great teams, you go with the team that has the best player, and the best player will be wearing 15 for Kansas City.
Yes, he
will.
will.
I just feel like the Eagles are better up front on both sides of the ball. And it's tough to win a football game when the other team is better up front on both sides of the ball. So I lean Philly.
I'm excited. That those numbers you pulled up against the top 10 pass defenses. That's awesome.
Nuts.
That's awesome. And
he's a cheat code. He's in a class by himself, and I hope. I mean, obviously, I'm a Chiefs fan. I hope they win the game. Period. But I do hope that he continues to just because he's the kind of guy that you can buy a jersey for your kid and be totally secure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I for his own legacy, I hope that they get this one too. But he's amazing.
Yeah. We talked about it a lot on this show, Kyle, and Regz being the Jonathan Gannon, like negative Nelly over there.
Yeah.
One of the things we talk about is, what happens when you face the great? Like, what happens in that situation? Well, I think you just answered the question. He's going to get his. Like, there's no doubt he's going to get his in this game. The Eagles are the number one pass defense in the league, but it doesn't matter when you're facing. It's like we talked about with Brady. Like, the Eagles had a great defense that year. Now, this defense is far more talented all across the board, far more, but they were a really good defense. But Brady was Brady, and Mahomes is going to be Mahomes. That's not changing because you have the number one pass defense. It's not. But it'll be interesting to see, how this plays out. We aren't going to do our predictions until our Thursday show. When we just talk only this, we're going to talk about it from all angles, but certainly, Kyle, we appreciate all of your time tonight. Thanks for taking so much time out to talk to us and give us some, insight into the Chiefs. And certainly we wish you the best of luck on Sunday. Hopefully your prediction comes true.
Yeah, just a little bit less than us is all we say. All the luck in the world, just a skosh less than us.
Yeah. It's so weird that it's these two teams. I was telling Mike before we jumped on, when you guys won, I lived that vicariously through all my friends and family that bleed green. I was so happy for them, and it was cool. And then 2 years later, Kansas City got theirs, and I felt like all the Philly fans were behind the Chiefs because of the Andy situation and all that. And now they're playing against each other. So it's like you can't be
it's wild.
supportive on both sides. You got to go for your guys, So
That's right.
I actually said something tonight to my brother-in-law, and I was like, yeah, well, I'd be upset if they lose, certainly. Like, you get this far, you want to win, right? But in the same breath, like, there's not a single Chief that I dislike. Not one. There is not a guy on that roster, on that sideline that I dislike. When we played the Patriots, there are plenty of dudes that I don't like, right? Plenty. But especially the big guy running it all. Like, so yeah, I'll be upset. I'll be disappointed. But I think at the end of the day, if it goes the other direction, the disappointment will be there. It's been a great season, and it would feel bad. But I also feel like there'd be that glimmer of me that would still be happy for Andy, and obviously Mahomes, who is just that all-American dude that everybody just loves. So again, we wish you the best of luck, Kyle, and we appreciate you coming on tonight. Thanks so much. And hopefully we can circle back to this again at some point. Maybe we'll have a couple more of these to do.
Yeah, who knows, man? With these two quarterbacks, you never know.
Yeah, for sure.
Really appreciate it, man. Thanks, Kyle.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Go Chiefs, go.
Wow. Rex,
we keep picking some winners for this show, man. I'm just telling you. Somehow, the people who come on here are ready to go, man. They're just ready to go.
Pretty good.
It's like we said. Like, he's ready, man.
Yeah, we told you guys that. That's a star performance from Kyle. And you know what? Like, really good guy.
Yeah.
Clearly somebody who's done his homework on the Eagles, understands the Eagles. Understands what the Eagles want to do. And again, I want to just say thank you to Kyle for spending that time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. And certainly, I promise I'm going to send this week for you.
You have to now. He's been on the show. Like, come on.
Yeah, now he's been on the show. It's got to go. It's got to. But just real quickly, certainly he gave us a lot of information to chew on as an Eagle fan heading into the game. But the thing that I take away from it was the conversation that he brought up about the offensive line, Regs. And I think when I think about the offensive line for the Chiefs, their strength could really play a little bit with the Eagle strength. He talked about the interior being really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while the edge rushers for the Eagles can certainly get home still and be their aggressive selves. We talked a little bit about how that can affect their ability to contain Mahomes if they can't push the pocket back on.
Exactly.
And I think that's not something that I knew about them. I just thought their offensive line was questionable.
Yeah.
But certainly, Kyle brings up ways that they even try and, mess with that a little bit and putting guys in motion and making the edge rushers sort of have to pause for a beat and hold contain, which I think the Eagles ends do pretty well when they know they have to.
I know they knew it was coming, but in that San Francisco game, nothing scarier than Debo like coming around the end. And
Brandon Ayuk too.
Yeah, despite them knowing that they had to run the ball, like you still have to be able to contain all that. So I think they did a pretty good job of it even 2 weeks ago.
That was my big takeaway. There was a lot that he talked about, but I feel like that one really hit me.
Yeah.
Really got me.
Yeah.
But it's going to make me think about what the Eagles could do to sort of play with that because, and we'll talk more about this on Thursday. I'm not going to go into it now. My wheels are spinning a little bit, on how they can, still make their biggest strength, a success for them. What about you? What did you take away?
I just very much appreciated the context of like, it's very difficult to have a true assessment of an opposing team the week of the Super Bowl as the opposite team's fans.
Yeah.
As much as we could read articles and look into it, we haven't watched every game. We don't follow it like a true fan would. And Kyle is a true fan. Like he showed that this guy watches every game seriously and understands how this team works and how it functions and all those things. So I think I just appreciated the context of here's where this Kansas City team is right now, a week from the Super Bowl. Here's where he certainly, then he shared, hey, here's where I think they need to be to have any like a shot in this game, despite Patrick Mahomes, like he said, being the best player on the field every time he takes one step onto it. So I just really appreciated that context, and especially for the people who listen to this show, it's a huge insight into how like that fan base is feeling and really what that team is probably worrying about. It's getting all those guys back healthy. It's can Andy come up with a scheme good enough to really take advantage of this defense, our defense, which is, again, has been very, very good, but is not without its flaws. So I just thought it was some really great context into the Chiefs and where they are right now and where he thinks they will be, and certainly where he thinks they can get to before the game starts.
Yeah. It was just all great stuff, man.
Really great.
Just all great stuff, and we appreciate Kyle for coming on. So once again, Kyle, thank you so much for the time, and certainly we wish you the best of luck next week, and hopefully you'll listen to our preview podcast. You made your prediction and talked about your keys, and y'all might be wondering like, why didn't you guys do that? Well, we have another show coming into it. You're not going to hear anything Phillies. You're not going to hear anything Sixers unless they trade for Kevin Durant before we record on Thursday night. That show is going to be all Super Bowl.
Yep.
You'll see a post come through probably on Wednesday night for you to put your thoughts and questions in there. That's guided our conversation through the division round. It guided our conversation in the NFC Championship round. So it'll certainly guide our conversation for the Super Bowl. So look for that on Wednesday night. We'll gather those questions up and our thoughts, and then we'll talk to that on Thursday evening as we gear up for an Eagles Super Bowl. And then post Super Bowl, we've got two situations that could happen, guys.
Only two.
There's only two outcomes here. If it should be an unfortunate loss, then Regz and I will just come on and lament our feelings here on the air for you guys to listen to on Monday morning. And if they should win, then we're bringing you on.
Come join us.
So prepare yourself now.
That's right.
If they win, you're coming on. We're going to open the lines for celebration. We're going to jump on. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of time. I'm going to have to run around and see a couple of neighbors to give some hugs and, celebrate with them a little bit. But ultimately we'll be on here doing a reaction podcast with you if they win, and recording all of the celebration that goes along with the Birds. So that's what we got coming up. Start thinking of what you want us to talk about on Thursday. Like I said, you've really guided our conversation for the entire postseason, so we want to keep that going. We've loved getting your thoughts and your questions. And certainly we'll take it from there. Right, Regz?
Yeah. Again, it's the best part is that there's people out there enough who listen and care about this show enough to have an opinion and share their thoughts and be willing to, answer the poll questions or just throw their thoughts out there about whatever we might be talking about. So we can't say thank you enough. The numbers for the downloads have been incredibly consistent and climbing. We just hit our 2000th download like a week ago. Again, we didn't tweet about it because we're not tweeting from the podcast account, but we'll tweet about that at some point after the Super Bowl. We'll tweet about it. But again, it's been 77 true episodes and 2,000 downloads. We've gained almost 10 subscribers to the YouTube channel in a month. Like just wild support that we continue to be completely humbled and eternally thankful for.
And I think what gets me is like those are only our downloads. Those aren't our streams. Those aren't our YouTube views. Like it is. It's incredible. And we people like Kyle, like we appreciate you guys listening and sharing the word. And certainly we ask you to do that. I mean, we'd love to have as many people that love this city and these teams as much as we do, and that's the more we grow, the more opportunities for you guys to get great content.
I got a chance to meet someone at work through like just a random connection. She comes on to a meeting because I was just getting together to say hello to her, and she has a Bryce Harper fat head on the back of her desk, and I was like, okay, we're friends now. Immediately go into it. Her husband has gone back and listened to almost every episode. He's working his way back through all the episodes because he's enjoyed it so much.
Wow. That's really cool.
So it's been like that kind of stuff is just, again, wild.
And I will tell you this, and Regz, you're hearing this for the first time.
Oh,
I've found a way to work through the website, so I'll be putting some writing content out there. I'm thinking I've got some other stuff, some other projects that I'm working through that are separate from the podcast, but I think we should have a Phixated website actually up and running here within, I'd say probably by spring training for the Phillies to roll around.
That's fantastic news.
So there'll be some written content for you guys to check out.
Cannot wait for that.
And see. And what Regz and I'll decide what that'll look like, and maybe we can get some people to even help on there and work through it with us. But certainly some good stuff.
That's awesome.
Coming because of the support that you guys have given us, and certainly we hope that keeps growing. Again, someone who loves Philly sports, send it to them. And certainly we appreciate that. And just the support is incredible. So we'll be back on Thursday night. In the meantime, let me do my spiel. Indulge me. Maybe you'll turn it off at this point because you've already done all these things. If you haven't done all these things, go do them all. Like, just go do them all.
All of them are free except for the merch.
Yeah.
Like,
which
all of
we
them are
say
free.
last, because at that point, just click subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And you know what? Even if you're not watching on YouTube, go on YouTube, search the Phixated podcast, and click subscribe. Like, just give us another subscriber. It takes 2 seconds.
I mean,
go do it.
Go back and watch your favorite podcast. You'd be shocked at the reason I love the video part of it so much and why I wanted to push it so hard is because you can get a lot from just an audio form, right? Listening to our change of cadence and how we get excited about things. But like, if you haven't gone back, and again, this is on Twitter, but if you haven't watched our reaction to the Phillies making the playoffs on video, like that reaction in an audio form is not the same. Like our intro to the pod where the Phillies make the playoffs or the World Series or whatever, like it's just not the same. Like going back and watching is one of my favorite parts. Go back and watch freaking Ruben Amaro Jr. His face is right here. Like it's right next to ours. He's not just, we didn't create like a Ruben Amaro bot. He's actually there talking to us. And it's the coolest thing. Like that's why I love the YouTube stuff. It's so cool to be able to go back.
Anybody who watches it prefers it over, the audio.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're super good looking. So it doesn't hurt.
As he is.
Stop.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
You stop. All right. So make sure you click subscribe. Go do it. If you're listening on audio, just stop. You've got it on your phone. Go to the app on your phone and do it. If you have not subscribed on your podcast networks, do that too. And then click and rate. Like rate us. The higher ratings we get, the further we climb up, people see us more. And certainly it continues to grow that way too. Go ahead and follow us on all your social media outlets. You can follow us at the B&B Pod on Instagram. You can do the same thing for the platform on Twitter. And then you can follow us at the Phixated Pod. We are tweeting nothing from there right now.
Zero.
As a matter of fact, I don't even have it on my phone.
I do, but I have not said a thing.
Yeah, we are radio silent, superstition, hashtag superstition.
Yep.
And then you can follow me at the Mic Drop 5 and follow Regz at Big Regz with a Z for, just sports content. We're always tweeting about sports. I've been tweeting about my gym journey recently. So you have can follow that too.
It's been fun.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. And otherwise, like go into the description, click the merch. If you haven't already done it, check it out. See if you like something.
It's good stuff.
And it's good stuff. I mean, I got the hat on again.
I'm about to order another quarter zip. I'm about to order another quarter zip.
Oh, are you?
Yep.
I gotta get the cap. I want the. I really want the baseball hat.
I mean, for you, it's kind of essential, really.
Yeah. Like as the summer comes around, I want to wear that.
Yeah.
On the show.
Yeah.
So I know that they don't have the one that's actually there. So I have to email and ask for the substitute one.
We'll figure it out.
I'm gonna get it.
We're gonna get it.
Otherwise, guys, we appreciate you listening tonight. Thanks again to Kyle for his time.
Yeah.
And we'll be back on Thursday for another episode. They don't play between now and then, but obviously I'm going to end by saying, take care, be good. We appreciate and love each and every one of you for listening. Go Birds!
Go Birds, baby!
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here! The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.